Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's Ambassador Community webinar. Really excited to have you all here. My name is Ronan Breen and I'm the Digital Marketing Manager at the Algorand Foundation. I have the pleasure of being your moderator today. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go through with you. First up is the GoToWebinar control panel, which you'll see situated on the right-hand side of your screen. You have been entered into the webinar in listen-only mode, so you are muted by default. This is just to minimize background noise and ensure a better webinar experience. This does not mean, however, that we do not want to hear from you. Your contribution to the webinar is important, and we will make time at the end for your questions. With regards to the control panel, you can actually submit questions in the question section of the control panel on the right-hand side. This webinar is being recorded. We will be sending an email after the webinar with the link to the recording, and we'll also share it on the Slack channel. So if you can't stay for the whole webinar, we have you covered. Just as a note in terms of the follow-up email with the recording, we also have an upcoming Train the Trainer webinar on August 25th with Russ Fustino. He's the Algorand blockchain developer advocate, and we'll include a link to register for this along with a short ambassador survey with the recording from today's webinar as well. I'd like to start now by introducing today's speakers. Very excited, we have Sean Lee, the Algorand Foundation and CEO, and Paul Riegle, the head of product for Algorand as well. Sean will kick off. He's a few things to discuss with you guys, and that will be followed up from Paul on the product side, who will share some exciting product and protocol release and features with you guys as well. So let me just pass it over to Sean.
All right, thank you, Ronan. I am hoping that everyone can see the screen. I just did turn on my camera, so hopefully that works. So it's really fantastic to see everyone today. I know I can't see all of you in person, but this is probably as good as any in terms of the world that we live in today. I've been really looking forward to engaging with more closely with the ambassador community ever since I joined the foundation. And I think it's really awesome that we can leverage today's product updates that Paul will be speaking on in just a little bit as a way to connect with all of you. Now, in normal times, I would have been flying out to meet with many of you, and this is probably one of those strange times in our lives where we're going to have to wait until it's safer to travel before we do so. Just a quick intro about myself. I spent roughly about half of my life in North America, in Canada and the United States, and then the other half here in Asia. I started my career as a software engineer, then gradually took on different leadership roles in the commercial space. I've conducted, I think, business in over 20 some odd countries around the world. And I think that experience really allowed me to learn how to appreciate different cultures, different business practices. But more importantly, I think it's just it also in my experience just to show how amazing and how much similarities we all have as people and also as communities as well. In terms of the Algorand Foundation, I think many of you probably know I joined roughly 2 months ago. And this is probably a good opportunity to share with you what is important for me in terms of what we want to accomplish and our visions and mission as well out of the Algorand Foundation. And I'll probably cover just kind of 2 key aspects from the foundation's perspective. The first aspect is very much around community engagement. What's very important for us is really to get a real understanding of what's happening in our community, what we have done well as a project, but also more importantly, where we can improve. I know it's not easy when we don't have a lot of these offline, normal offline engagements that we can have with many of our developers and our community members as well. But I think in today's world, leveraging digital means, if there's a way that we can constantly have feedback and engagements with all of you, I think that would really be very helpful for the foundation in terms of things that we could do better. We could also identify areas where we can innovate together, and bring more excitement to the overall project. So I would say, the very first aspect, and something that I talk to my team about almost on the daily basis, is how can we engage with the communities better? What channels did we use? What type of content should we be producing? How should we be listening to more from the community, especially the ambassadors community that we have, so that we can really bring more buzz and awareness and excitement to what we're all doing here. Now, the second aspect is around the ecosystem development aspect. So engaging with the community, but what we really want to see is to drive additional engagements around the various different programs that the Algorand Foundation have launched over the past 12 months or so. That includes obviously the ambassador program, which is where all of you fit in, but also around our university programs where we're doing a number of research engagements with them to identify new areas that we can continue to add on to our development efforts. Also our grants program that we launched early in the year, and we're seeing a tremendous uptake in terms of grant applications that are coming from all around the world, both in terms of kind of infrastructure level type of use cases, but also very interesting business application use cases that are coming as well. Many of you may also know that a couple of months ago, we also launched the Asia Accelerator program. We will be closing that off pretty soon in terms of starting really going through the interview process and then be able to identify the accelerators that we want to be going through with the overall program over the next few months, and very excited about that whole process as well. So, we have a number of these programs that are in launch, that are in progress, and all of that is really used so that we can identify different areas where we can leverage the capabilities, leverage the various different use cases that are being incubated across industries and across geographies, so that we can look for different ways to highlight the unique capabilities of the Algorand protocol, especially around use cases that bring high volume financial transactions. I think many of you may be looking at some of the transaction volumes that we've been seeing on the blockchain over the last 2 to 3 weeks. One of our projects, Props, went live. They migrated a number of users on there, and I think last week there were some days where we're seeing almost close to 2 million transactions a day. So that's really a really excellent proof point on the capability and what we're able to accomplish altogether within the communities in terms of these different use cases, but also in terms of the ecosystem partners that we're able to bring on board. So these are two very important aspects that we're trying to drive towards within the Algorand Foundation. And like I said, the ambassadors are like our extended brothers and sisters out there. We want to hear from you, we want to learn from you, and we want to build exciting things all together as well. Before I pass off to Paul, I just want to do a quick shout out to Akil, who's our second quarter Super Ambassador Award. I wanted to say congratulations, Akil. I know you and I talked a few weeks back. You've done a tremendous work for our Japan community, creating and translating many of the content to be shared with your network and the broader community as well. So thank you very much for all the work you do. Very excited to continue to work with you, and congratulations again to be our second quarter Super Ambassador. Now with that, Ronan, I'd like to pass it over to Paul and go over some of the exciting product updates.
Great, thank you, Sean. This is Paul Riegle, working on getting the camera going, and I need the presenter passed over to me, and then I can get started for everybody. All right. All right, Ronan or Sean, everything working okay?
Looks good.
Excellent. Okay, so first of all, thanks everybody for joining us. Really appreciate your time. We know how hard you're working for us. We want to make sure you've got the information you need to continue to really believe in us and get the word out there. So today I want to take you guys through a release preview. So if you've been following us on the forums, you'll know that we've introduced some new capabilities into BetaNet, and we anticipate that getting out to mainnet this week on Wednesday. So very excited about that. And I want to take you through the 3 key highlights from this release. So the first one is around a feature we're calling Rekeying. And I'll go into this more detail in the next slide. But what Rekeying does is really allow folks to have a single long-running public address and then swap out the private key or the authorization key underneath it whenever they like. Lots of really interesting use cases. I'll go into that in a second. The second is fast catch-up. This allows you to get started on mainnet with a nice trust model almost immediately. So we're talking about minutes rather than hours or days from catching up from the Genesis block. Lots of applications for developers and for businesses as well. And then the third piece is our Algorand Smart Contracts. So we have had ASC1s out in the market, stateless ASC1s that have a lot of utility. With this release, we're also adding the ability to carry state in those smart contracts or stateful smart contracts, which operate a lot like all the smart contracts on other chains, which really unlocks the applications and the use cases for you guys to go out and build and for other folks to build as well. So we're really excited about that, and I'll take you guys through it in detail. So Rekeying, what is the problem that we were trying to solve with Rekeying? Well, the primary problem here is that when you have a private key, in order to have a security policy around that private key, there's a lot of operational overhead. And that's everything from the lengths to which people will go to keep keys cold, to if you feel like your key is maybe compromised, needing to move all your money to a new public address, creating this trail of money where it's hard to sort of update if you've got that address used in applications. If you're identified by that address, you have to go around and start updating a bunch of things. So anytime you want to kind of introduce the security policy around keys, it's possible, but you've got all this operational overhead. So what have we done here to solve this problem? We've allowed folks to keep a single public long-running public address. So you have your public address, and whenever you like, you can swap out the key. So let's say you feel like you don't think it's as secure as it was previously. You can change that underlying authorization spending key without having to change your public address. So it keeps it really simple from an external facing perspective while allowing you the flexibility you need. There were 3 key design principles and differentiators around this feature. First of all, we're not aware of any other protocols that have this as a layer 1 primitive. If you know Algorand, which you guys do, you know we're all about the layer 1 primitives, making it simple, making it easy. And those design principles carry through to Rekeying. So as far as simplicity, this is just a single optional new field in existing transactions. So there's no new craziness you got to try and figure out. It's just a new field. If you want to rekey that account, you just pop in the new address that you want to rekey it to, and you're done. It's also super flexible, so you can actually upgrade security policies or create actual policies. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If you have an address backed by a single key, you can choose to rekey that address to a multi-sig. So now you've got that same public address with a higher security profile because you've got a multi-sig behind it. You can also choose to rekey it to a stateless smart contract. Why is that interesting? Inside of that stateless smart contract, you can do things like, hey, key 1 is allowed to spend up to $500 once a day. Key 2 is allowed to spend up to $2,000 once a week. And key 3 can do whatever it wants, whenever it wants. So you can literally introduce spending policies around your private key and around your account. So it just wasn't possible previously. We are super excited about that. And by the way, it's kind of unlimited usage. You can't just rekey once, you can rekey as much as you'd like. So if you have an account and you don't believe that keys should ever be hot, well, hey, no problem. What you can do is anytime you need to spend from that account, inside of that pay transaction, you can rekey to a new account, a new private key, so that every time you send a transaction, you've got a brand new key underneath it that has never been used. So literally, you can spend from an account while always keeping your private keys cold. Super powerful, super interesting. And there's lots of use cases here. We talked about the high security or flexible security use case, custody accounts. So I don't know if you guys, how many of you are involved in custody accounts, but a lot of times what they want to do is keep those keys cold forever, but they need to occasionally send transactions. And so every time they send a transaction, they actually sweep all the money out of that public address into another public address that has a private key. And they keep doing this, keep sweeping the money around. So you've got this big chain of where the money has gone. All of that operational overhead can go away with Rekeying. You simply swap out the key underneath, continue with that long-running address. Novation is a really interesting concept in finance, where you're actually trading ownership of accounts within larger transactions. So I'm a bank, you're a bank, we're settling up. We need to, I owe you this much money, you owe me this much British pounds. We're going to swap an asset, some real estate asset. With rekeying, you don't have to rekey the account to a key you own. I can actually rekey it to an account somebody else owns. And so I can, in the course of a transaction, actually give someone else an account that has already been set up, that already has X amount of money, and I can do it in a way that's completely trustless. So I've rekeyed it to your key. I have no access to it anymore. This account is now yours. And then finally, user onboarding. We've had a number of folks looking to change chains. They have this very large user base. They're on Ethereum, they're on Hyperledger. They want to bring this user base over to Algorand. And in the course of doing so, they need to set up accounts for all their users. And it may be 500,000 users, 1 million users, 10 million users. And pushing that burden onto their users themselves is possible, but it's not the most ideal way to do it. And so what we're seeing these companies want to do is completely, so they open an account, they get the right minimum balance, they opt into the right assets, they get this thing totally set up, and then they can rekey it to a customer account and give them an account that's already set up. They don't have to do a thing, and they're ready to go on Algorand. Really powerful for user onboarding and large user base migration. We're super excited about rekeying. Like I said, it is a really unique solution for very real problems that are out there in the world, and we think it's going to be really exciting for people to get into. The second one, fast catch-up. This is not a complicated problem we're solving here. This is a problem across all blockchains. And the problem here is that catching up from the Genesis block, it just extends the time that it takes to get to the blockchain. So if you are a developer and you want to be on mainnet and you got to start from Genesis block, okay, great, but now you got to wait however long it is to get there. And by the way, with Algorand, you've got 4.5 second block time, so you've got a lot more blocks. You've got 1,000 transactions per block possible, so you could have a lot more transactions. So in a way, our technology that sets us apart and really makes us highly valuable extends this time even more because your blockchain gets even bigger. So the solution here, we've got nodes, we've got the ability, just like you can create a node and then set it to be an archival node, you can set a node to create catch points. What these catch points do is create secure and downloadable ledger as of specific blocks. We create them every 10,000 blocks. And then when you go to Catchup, if you use fast Catchup, you simply download this verifiable ledger as of roughly 10,000 blocks ago and catch up from there. So at no point do you have to catch up from more than 10,000 blocks. So we're talking about minutes here, not hours or days, etc. And again, those key design principles, they're the same, right? We're talking about simplicity. This is a single command. If you're starting up a node, just like you would set a flag for an archival node, it's a single command during startup to say, hey, I want to use the fast catch-up catch point. It's also secure. It's continuous, easily verifiable trust, and it's visible across the network. So all of the nodes that are set to create these catch points are creating the same catch points. You can verify the hash. You can verify to make sure they're acceptable and correct and no one's doing anything wrong. And it's really easy to make sure that you feel comfortable with the trust. And finally, it's optional. Anytime you're dealing with how you catch up and the blocks on the blockchain, we want to make sure people are comfortable with the way they're doing it. So this is optional. You can choose to use it. You can choose to not. I know that our conversations with developers and with companies, they're pretty excited about fast catch-up. It's kind of a game changer in terms of getting involved, getting involved quickly. And the two use cases here are fairly straightforward. It lowers the bar for developer environments. We talked about that. It also really lowers the bar for people who want to participate in consensus. If you want to run a node and participate in consensus and be part of the network and part of securing that network, well, now you can do so really easily, really quickly, rather than having to wait around and make sure you've got that whole blockchain downloaded. So this is a small feature, but really is going to have quality of life improvements for both our developers and for folks who just want to participate. Finally, and this is the big one here for this release, our comprehensive smart contracts. So what's the problem that we're trying to solve here? So we've had stateless smart contracts. There's lots of things you can do with that. The primary problem we're trying to solve here is when you look across other chains, and then obviously there's some issues with gas fees on other chains in particular, but the cost and speed of these smart contracts are making business models really hard, and it's making the user experience really spotty. The capabilities, I'm not saying anything about the capabilities. The innovation that's happening in smart contracts is amazing. The capabilities of these other smart contracts, they're amazing. But the cost and the speed just make it really hard to do something on a large scale. So what have we done? Well, again, continuing on that layer one theme, we've brought stateful smart contracts into layer one for these applications that require the speed, they require the finality, but they also require being cost effective. And that's what we've done. So what are the key design principles here? Number one, they're fast. There are over 1,000 transactions a second. There are no second-class transactions on Algorand. Whatever transactions you're sending, get to take advantage of that superhighway underneath. Everything runs at the same speed. Secondly, they're cheap. These stateful smart contracts, you can write as complex of an application as you want. The transaction fees, currently the same as any other transaction, which is a milli-algo, 0.001 algos. And finally, they are powerful. You can write, again, we've gone through and written a number of example smart contracts here, everything from DeFi applications to voting applications to highly complex assets to some games. They are powerful. You can write whatever you want, just like you could on other chains. However, you've got that speed and that cost model that make it super, super effective. So we are very excited. We think this is a little bit of a sea change in the competitive landscape for blockchains. And I think you guys are going to find that it's just even easier to go out there and talk about our message and talk about what you guys see as the value of Algorand. And I just wanted to throw this slide up here just to really back up the work that you guys have done, the work that we've done, and the synergy that comes together in terms of what's out there in the market. Our technical innovation continues to drive adoption, and we really believe in our technical innovation. And not only that, but we feel we want to continue to justify our technical innovation to you guys. I know I've talked with a number of you guys. I know that you see that the work that we're doing, the pace of innovation that we bring is something that you like to talk about in market. And I wanted so there's a bunch of things on this screen. We've got a lot of partners. We've got over 380 companies leveraging the platform. There's over 50 wallet providers. There's over 300 ambassadors out there. There's 16 different CBDC projects. There's just a lot of things going on. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a view confidentially here about our roadmap and things that are coming up. We want to ensure that you continue to have technical innovations to talk about, not just now, not just in 6 months, but all the way down the road. And so I want to give you a little bit of insight. We've been a little bit cagey with this externally, so you won't see a lot of it out there, but I wanted to give it you guys directly. 3 things that we're working on right now. So we've talked about co-chains in the market a little bit. We're continuing to make progress there. We're also working on a really unique solution for token bridges. Token bridges in the market right now have a couple different models. They primarily revolve around a centralized party who basically sits in the middle and approves the transactions across chains. We're working on a unique solution that is totally decentralized. The Algorand blockchain itself basically approves the bridge transaction. It's a unique solution. It's really powerful, and we're working on it behind the scenes. Wanted to let you know about it. Primarily, we're talking about a bridge between Algorand and Ethereum, and then we'll be going out to other chains as well, but that'll be the initial thing. The final thing is around the speed of transactions. So, we've talked about 1,000 transactions a second, 4.5 seconds a block, and you can take most of the other public chains combined before you even get any kind of usage of that kind of scale. But it's not enough for us. We believe that as the world continues to learn about blockchain and the blockchain industry matures, the 1,000 transactions a second is going to have to get more. You're going to get really large businesses that are coming into to our blockchain and immediately start taking up pretty big chunks of that 1,000. So we want to continue to build it out. And we're looking to make improvements that aren't just little. We're talking about order of magnitude improvements here. We're trying to improve up to 10,000 transactions a second. We're trying to reduce the latency of the blocks from 4.5 seconds to something on the order of 2.5. These are in progress, so I don't want to go too deep or give you dates, but they are things that we are actively working on right now, and we're going to continue to bring you the innovation that you need to to really feel good about leading out front and talking about our message. And that's super important to us. And so I just wanted to close by saying thank you again. Happy to answer questions, and we're really excited both about the work externally, internally that we're doing and the technology we're pushing out, but also the work that you guys are doing out there in the market. We really appreciate it. That's what I got, Ronan. If you want to take over from there, we can start taking some questions.
That was great, Paul. Thanks very much for your overview. I've just put Sean back on. So we've got a couple of questions come through, sort of a mix. First one I'll start with, from smart contract section, what are the key differences you see between Algorand versus Ethereum?
Yeah, so there's a couple of key differences. The primary differences are speed and cost. If you've been following Ethereum over the past month or two, the costs are getting pretty amazing. And like I said, if you're a vendor trying to build a real business built on smart contracts, the costs involved are really just making business models really hard. The other side of this is the speed. So we're talking about 1,000 transactions a second, whether it's a smart contract, whether it's a simple payment transaction, whatever it is. And with that kind of speed, you can really enable use cases that weren't possible before, but also create user experiences that feel like traditional technology, that feel like a SaaS application, not like a blockchain application. And those are the kind of advancements that we're going to need to really take blockchain to the next level in terms of adoption. And I'll say the final thing that's a little bit different. The market talks a lot about Turing complete languages. Turing complete languages are super powerful. You can do whatever you want. We believe at Algorand that Turing complete languages open up attack surface that is simply not needed in many cases. And so when you think about the smart contracts on Algorand, not only are they faster and cheaper, but they're also it's a decidable language. So you can be sure about what you've written. You can do static analysis to understand the safety and security of that smart contract. That is just not possible with the Turing complete language, at least not without formally verifying and adding all sorts of complexity on top. So I would say speed, cost, and then the security or precision of those smart contracts as well.
Great. Sean, I think this is one for you, sorry, is how is the actual foundation grants program doing at the moment?
Oh, the grant program actually, as I mentioned briefly earlier in the conversation, we are honestly seeing new grants coming through almost on a daily basis. Now, part of what we're really trying to accomplish over the last few weeks is to put a more rigorous process in place to be able to facilitate the grant evaluation, but more importantly, to identify the interesting use cases that we're able to see that add on to the ecosystem build out, the development aspect that I talked about earlier, and be able to really bring different variety and diversity towards the program itself. So I think the grant program itself, I would say over the last at least the 2 months that I have been here, it certainly accelerated quite a bit. And we're now seeing use cases like I mentioned from all around the world, various different use cases. And I think we'll be publishing our transparency reports in the coming months, and we'll be announcing some of those as well and sharing with all of you what are some of those grants that are in progress, and also some of the grant applicants that have completed as well. One of those recent one would be Icon that actually just came online, so you might have seen some of the press releases on that also. So I would say the process is great, but we can always do more. We can always use more applicants as well. So I think all of you that are out there that are working with your communities and working with your network, I think encourage all of them and yourself as well. Look at the grant program. Try to see if there are any innovation, any business ideas that you want to bring in that can really truly leverage the Algorand capability, especially some of the new features that Paul just went through with you. I think that would be one ask for me from the foundation to all of you, is to help us continue to bolster that up and make it even more exciting.
Perfect. There's a question here regards the Accelerator program in Asia. You probably might have answered this already, Sean. It's more general. When does the Asia Accelerator program close, and was it successful? We did publish a tweet today actually, where we did confirm that the applications are closed. I think we had 143 applications which were received across 39 countries, which is fantastic. And initially, we're greatly encouraged by the caliber of the startups as well. And next steps would be obviously to start reviewing, which you spoke to. Have I missed anything there? Or
No, I'd just like to say we also saw an acceleration toward the last couple of weeks, and that's to be expected. I think a lot of folks had initially had questions about what would constitute a viable kind of proposal into the Accelerator program, the evaluation process, and so on. So I think it took a little bit of time initially to ramp up. But as you mentioned, we've got close to 150 applicants. We're going through all of them right now. What I was really happy to see was that even though we call this the Asia Accelerator program, I think earlier on we made it very clear that as a startup or as a team, you don't have to be in Asia, right? As long as you are building and extending your business into Asia, or you're building right from this market, you're all welcome. So just from the cutover, just the initial cutover that I saw earlier today, there were quite a few that are actually outside of Asia, which I think it's part of this this notion where the community is growing together. The borders and the geographies are getting erased, especially in times like these. And I'm very excited to see what's going to come out of this Accelerator program, and then to see the final applicants that we're going to be working with. So very exciting, and there'll be more to come.
Perfect. In the future, should we expect fees on Algorand to remain at 0.001 algos, or could this change when we get more transactions?
Yeah, so as with all blockchains, if you're talking about a congested network scenario, fees do go up in order to make sure that the blockchain can continue to process transactions from whoever needs to process them. In terms of the, is it 0.001 algos as a minimum fee? Those are all decisions that would be made by the community in conjunction with the, the economic advisors at the foundation through protocol changes if desired. But that isn't something that we would decide. That would be something that the blockchain community would decide, the Algorand community.
Perfect. Will the launch of smart contracts help the grants program speed up and distribute more algos to the community?
Well, I would think so. I think actually both the smart contract and also the upcoming coaching capability that Paul talked about before. I think some of these capabilities are really going to bring even more use cases that can go onto the onto the project itself. So we do see a gradual acceleration towards the variety of use cases that we're already seeing right now. So I think it's a little bit too early to tell, right? We just launched that just last week. So we are going to see and closely monitor what are going to be out there, and then obviously we'll be communicating with the community and within the ambassador team as well. I think we're very excited to see what's going to happen. Right now, we are just waiting to see what exciting and innovative things are going to come down our line.
Great. I think this might be for Paul. Is there any protocol under development, pardon me, like Uniswap for Ethereum?
So that's a good question. So the smart contract release that we are doing this week will allow applications like Uniswap to be built, and in actually a pretty unique way. When you combine the stateful smart contracts with stateless smart contracts, you can do some really interesting things. For example, Uniswap is a good example. Uniswap allows basically anyone to create a new trading pair and get liquidity without having to go to a centralized gatekeeper like Binance, like Huobi, etc. That's great. The problem here is that you've got basically ever expanding state, which means you're doing more and more storage within this application, because every time you add a new pair, there's more storage. So costs can go up, speed can go down, etc. On Algorand, you can do a very similar product that looks like Uniswap, but because you can combine the stateful and stateless, you can use the stateless smart contracts to actually absorb the state increase, such that we don't suffer from this ever-expanding state. So the answer is it's absolutely possible once we put this release out, and we have been talking to a number of folks that are interested in doing it. if you are interested in doing it or know people that are, we certainly would encourage it, and we know that it is possible, and that we would, we can help along the way. There's lots of ways for us to do that.
Great. When would we see USDC available on Algorand as an ASA?
Another good question. I think I'll pass that to Sean. We are not Circle, so I can't speak for them. I believe I saw a press release that said Q3, but I'll pass that to Sean.
Our timeline is Q3 as well. I think there are some details that we need to work further out. So we are looking in the coming months for that to be made available. But please, I think we'll just leave it at that for now. But as soon as that information is available, we'll share that with the team.
Perfect. Another question, how much can ambassadors talk about the cross-chain tech and the speed improvements?
Good question. This is always the tightrope to walk here when we talk about things that are in progress or aren't quite here yet. I would say, I would ask you not to go into detail so that we can maintain flexibility on our end as we run into interesting new challenges, or we have to pivot a little bit to make sure that the feature works right. But at the same time, I think it's okay to talk about the general direction that we're headed. So we are headed towards, massively increased scale. We are headed towards, a multi-chain world, and we're going to be able to participate in that in a very unique way. We are headed toward, I think it's okay to talk about the directions and what you see coming down the line. I would just ask you, as a favor to me, to not go into too many specifics to make sure we've got degrees of freedom on the back end to deliver what we need to deliver.
Great. Sorry, Sean, this is probably for you, and it's related to gaming. So it's when will we expect to see Algorand House on House of Crypto live to play?
Okay. Well, that is a closely guarded secret. So we are working very furiously around that. What I can share with the team here is that we are working on designing, along with the House of Crypto team, various different avatars that will be being used in the game. We're planning to make them extremely exciting, so you'll be very surprised at some of the capabilities and some of the lookalikes, without telling you too much detail at the moment. But I think a lot of that will be coming out pretty soon. They're working through the design elements right now, but the gaming itself is more or less there. So as soon as I know, I will let you know. I am eagerly anticipating for it as well. So we'll stay tuned on that.
Great. Another question, can we see exchange features in Algorand Wallet for exchanging Algorand for other ASAs?
Good question. So, it's something that we've looked at, and we know that it's something that is desirable from a feature standpoint. When you get into actually exchanging directly through the wallet, if we provide that kind of service, just to give you guys a total, look under the hood, it changes the legal profile in terms of, excuse me, what we're actually doing with the crypto. And so we've sort of looked at it. We're not sure. Another angle we could use is using a third party to provide that service under the hood. I will say that it's not directly on the roadmap right now, but it's definitely something that we're exploring.
Great. Are the stateful smart contracts written in Clarity?
Good question. They are not. So there's two ways to write them. You can write them in Teal, or you can write them in PyTeal, which is basically a Python language binding for Teal. Makes it much simpler. If you're familiar with Python, you can write stateful smart contracts. We are still working on Clarity. That is a joint project with Blockstack. It's open source. We're working through to make that exactly what we want it to be, as robust and as powerful. And when we're ready for that, you guys will definitely hear about it. And it's something that we'll be, as loud as possible about.
Cool. Why do you think Tether isn't being used more broadly on Algorand with the Ethereum fee situation? What can we do as ambassadors to help in that area?
Maybe I'll take that one. I would say, this is a work in progress. We are actively developing our DeFi ecosystem around Algorand, and also in conjunction with other projects as well, just to see the various different use cases that could be bridged across various different aspects. So it is something that we're working on. It is something that the community is eagerly looking over as well. And we've got a number of different use cases that are very geared towards that area. So give us a bit of time. More will be coming. But certainly that is something that we are very eagerly to look at, both from in terms of USDT, but also later on with Circle as well. I think there was a question earlier about that. So both of those being the core stablecoin offering on Algorand. I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of that in the coming weeks.
Great, thanks, Sean. Is it possible in the future in the Algorand wallet to create ASA in the wallet itself?
Another good question. So that's again a feature that we've looked at. You know, I think the way we have landed is probably going to be no. And the reason that we've made that decision is to really be crystal clear on why it is you've downloaded the mobile wallet versus you know, many other things that we can do. There's kind of two ways to look at the interaction model. One could be, here's an app for everything Algorand related. You can create assets. You can participate, you know, in consensus. You can manage a node. You can send currencies around. You can do all of these things. And through our research and where we've kind of landed is, the more you put in it, the more you dilute the primary message and the primary user experience that you're trying to build. And so the mobile wallet, we will keep really just for transacting in various currencies. That's not to say that we aren't looking at building additional applications to meet additional needs, like, for instance, asset management. I will say there's a number of community-built applications for managing assets that are pretty powerful, and I would encourage you to check out that make it super, super simple to create and to get started and to manage the asset itself. So we've got some solutions out there. Probably won't put it in the mobile wallet, but we'd consider building additional applications to support that need.
Brilliant, thanks, Paul. I'll finish up on this last question, which is, what is the long-term vision of the Algorand blockchain? We could maybe take two approaches, one from the product side and one from maybe the foundation side for you, Sean, as well.
All right, I'll start on the foundation side. I think the short answer is, you know, get it adopted by as many users, as many developers, and as many businesses as possible. I think, you know, if we look at where this market is going, and you look at the various different activities that are both happening on the government side, the central bank side, but also within the DeFi markets, and also a lot of the startups that are building in the space. You are seeing an acceleration in adopting the technology, understanding and appreciating the dynamic that blockchain and cryptocurrency in general brings. Now, obviously, people are looking for the projects that bring the capability, the speed, the finality, the scalability that Paul talked about earlier. That is very important for real life use cases. And based on the trajectory that we're going, and also the trajectory that Paul shared with some of you as well, we could see a lot of very exciting real life enterprise use cases that are starting to pop up, and they're becoming more real than ever, right? So I think from a foundation perspective, we're going to continue to work with the community, work on various different adoption of migration use cases to bring that over onto Algorand, and then to continue to look at ways of accelerating that token ownership across our community as well. Now we're looking at a variety of different ways of doing that. We'll be again publishing a lot of those thought process into our upcoming reports. So we'll definitely be sharing with the team in regards to what that would look like. But I would say from the foundation side, it is to get to as many people as possible, reach as many communities, bring the use cases, build on the Algorand ecosystem, potentially through the Accelerator program or the grant program, so that we can really see this vibrant community and synergies that are coming between different partners. I think that's really where our project is going, both in the short term, but also in the long term as well.
Awesome. So from the product side, there's basically three things I want to hit here. One, we want to build the best tech in blockchain, period. And that's not a single capture the flag game like, aha, we've got the best tech, we're done. That is an ongoing, all-out battle. What blockchain looks like today looks nothing like what blockchain looked like 2 years ago. What blockchain will look like in 2 years will look nothing like what it looks like today under the hood. And we want to continue to be at the forefront of that and pump out the best possible technology. The second piece is we want this technology to be less and less talked about, right? Which is kind of an interesting juxtaposition. We want this to fade away. When you go and use Amazon, or when you go and log on to some website, you're not thinking, ooh, I wonder what routers they're using. I wonder what web server, are they using WebSphere? What version is it? You don't think about any of that because the tech is so good, it just works. You log in, you go to your application, you just use whatever you need to use, and you're focused on the business value and the business application, and the tech just isn't, it's so good you don't have to worry about it anymore. That's our second goal. And the third thing is more of a statement. This is not a short-term game. Getting to that best tech in 2 years and 4 years and 6 years, it's a continual thing. Getting the tech so good that it kind of recedes to the background, not a short-term game. We are in it for the long haul. We're in it for the long run, and we're going to continue to pump out the best technology and continue to deliver more and more transparent technology so that blockchain and specifically Algorand users don't have to worry about the back end at all. It just works.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Just thank you to both, and thanks to our ambassadors for some very, very good questions, very engaging questions. And it's been my pleasure to moderate you both today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Right, thank you. Take care.
I'll share the recording by email tomorrow, most likely, on Slack and by email. Thank you.
Bye-bye.